as well. Um, so the purpose of today, I'm actually really excited about today. We're going to go through and we're going to create an app from scratch. Um, and this is a pretty ambitious app. We're going to try to do one, create an app that writes basically a self-help book. As you guys, some of you know that are watching this, I've created an app that does a children's book. So we are going to take some of the things I learned from there, take a lot of the tools that we have in Dropified AI, and we are going to build us a really powerful app that you can use in all sorts of ways. Be a good draft for your own book. It can be a lead generation magnet, and um, and we're going to aim to make it really, really good. So I've blocked out about an hour and a half today. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. I'm going to do a lot of just doing and try to just stay in the flow and focused. So feel free to just kind of follow along with me as well. If you want to open up your own browser and start trying to build alongside me, um, it would be a really good practice. And if you're watching the recording, feel free to pause and kind of go back and start over. But I think if you, we're going to go over a lot of really powerful ideas. I'll show you some of the tips and tricks that I use when creating apps. We're going to use a lot of the tools, and then I'll show you the process that I go through when I'm just staring at a blank page and I'm like, how do I start building this app as well? So hopefully by the end of this, you'll have the tool set to basically tackle any process that you want for your own personal life or your business or a product idea that you have, some type of service idea that you have. You can put it in this workflow. We are operating within the constraints of Dropified AI and the workflow tools there, but it's pretty flexible and we have a lot of things that we can do. And then and then as the cool thing about it is so modular that as new features come out, you can always go back and just implement the new feature to upgrade your app. So we are going to be aiming for an MVP today. The children's book app that I wrote, it took me quite a while to just go through the process of kind of figuring out how to do it. I think if I did it again, I could do it a lot quicker, but it still takes time just to think through. So we're going to go for an MVP today. And typically that's the mindset I would encourage you to do as well. Really define what you're trying to do, and then just do the basic MVP blocks. And then it's so easy to go back into the app and just improve it by adding the little technical or the little style enhancements or user choice and all of that. So with all of that being said, hopefully you are excited to be here and follow along. Open up your browser, open up Dropified AI, and let's get ready to do this. So all right, the first thing we're going to do in the first part of this is from your perspective is really brainstorming what you're going to do and what you need. I'm not going to go into that a whole lot, but I will point out there are a couple tools to help with this. One is just use ChatGPT or inside of Dropified AI, pretty much the same thing as like your little helpful assistant here. It's basically the same thing as ChatGPT, or if you just want to pop open your favorite AI tool and just chat with it about some ideas. And then once you have that, there's an app in here. If you can just type in process create a prompt series is what it's called. This is great for just outlining kind of what you want to do or the process that it takes to create a longer work. So in this case, a book. So if we wanted to test that out, actually did this in the past, it looks like. But we could do it again. What is the end result that you want to achieve? And we'll just say, I'll choose, and we'll just say, write I'll just say a self-help book. And then we could hit submit. And this will go through and give us prompt ideas, and it'll actually try to chain it together as well. So this is something I would encourage you to use just to get your brain around it. Other things are just go through like standard, Google searches and do some research on the processes that it takes to write something. So I'll just go and just do a Google search, and I'll open about 5 different tabs, and I'll just scan through just to see what I can find. So as you can see here, this is basically OpenAI coming back and telling us, here's what you should do with your prompts to write a self-help book. And you can see brainstorm potential topics, which are central to the self-help genre. And then based on the chosen theme from prompt 1, outline a draft. And it says, based on the first chapter of the table of contents, what could be a proposed detailed structure? And it talks about introduction, main points, subpoints, and then, so you can see it just builds on itself. So now turn your structure into a draft of the first chapter. So these are some really good ideas. I don't always just use this as is, but it's a good idea just to wrap your head around the process. Because essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to define what we're trying to produce. So in this case, we are doing a nonfiction self-help book. And we're going to do 10 chapters. So just define it as much as you can. And that comes with research as well. And then from there, we break, this big whole down, just like you were doing it manually. What are the components that you are going to do? And that's where we're going to start on our next piece here. So in this case, we're just going to go through this process like I would do it. So I'm writing a book, nonfiction self-help book with 10 chapters that solves a problem. So the next thing that I want to do is just kind of like, what are we going to need? And I don't even, this is like a really loose brainstorm here. I don't try to constrain myself just yet. I'm just doing very high level, anything that I can think of that is going to be a part of this. This is inputs, outputs, styles, anything. Like I'm just picturing like the end product, and I'm looking at all the different components. I'll just start brain dumping, and you may want to do it differently. This is just the process that I use. So if you think about your book, you're going to need a title. You're going to need the premise of the book. You can do the just the different parts of the book, like the introduction, preface, an outline of the book, any like a frameworks that are in the book. And if you have any, throw them in the chat, and I'll grab from those as well. I'm just trying to kind of go through this process. So frameworks, we have all the different parts, like problems that we're going to solve. We have stories, like relatable stories that we're going to use. Problem, like the main problem to solve. Let's see. What else do we have? You guys threw some stuff in there as well. The main, any like quotes. Again, this is just brainstorm, like quotes we want to use, pain points that the reader may be experiencing that we want to address, the big promise that we have. We want to think about our target audience and like what they're wanting. So that's just a part of this. We have just a bit, I always like to do a brain dump. So I may want to have an area in the app itself for a brain dump, an area where I can even use, there's an audio feature in Dropified AI. So I may want to include that as well. And we're going to do, we need a, yeah, we have title up there, but I want to emphasize that we want like a catchy title, some type of title that's going to really catch the reader's attention, because that's one of the biggest pieces of like when people skim your books, the title has to resonate with them. That's why we have to know who our target audience is and who we're writing for. We want uh, story. Just the whole book needs to relate to the user, so we just need to keep that in mind. We'd like to make it maybe some emotional parts, like it doesn't need to be just facts and logic. We need to have some emotion in there. Um, Easy to read, so we need to take that into account. Needs to be something they can apply, so applicable, apply to their lives and not just a bunch of theory. What's the practicality of this thing? Maybe like a summary of each section or chapter and some action items. Checklist, great one. Walk with that, that's great. Checklists. Questions that make you think. So just some questions that just really calls the reader to kind of to think about it and have those paradigm shifts, and they can, you know, ask themselves. Um, Research, like maybe we have a place to put research and do our own research that we can add to it, not just rely on the AI. We may want to produce images. May want to get advice from other experts. We talked about an audio input earlier. I'll just put that specifically down. Let's see, we have put uh I in something like this with this workflow, I want to define the number of chapters that we have, so we have a structure to follow and it's not just loosey goosey every time we do it. And I like to have some type of what we can expect from it. Format, I want to format this in Markdown, so we have that ability in Dropified, so we want to make sure we specify that, and maybe our own experiences or notes that we want to do, like our own personal experiences that we want to share in there. We could go on, and if you have more, I'm watching the chat, so if you have more that you want to add, we can put that in there. But this section is just a very loose brain dump of, you can see I'm not really categorizing anything. It's like part of it's like things we need from the user that's inputting in the app, and sometimes it's just stuff we're outputting and just different pieces. So I like to do that and just be able to picture what this might look like. And that also comes with when you do your research, um, you'll get some ideas just from kind of reading. All right, so I think this is a good start for the brainstorm. The next piece would just, I would go through and I would take this, and then it's going to be kind of what we're going to output. So we've done this, what we would need brainstorm. Now it's going to be what we will output. All right. So this specifically focuses on the output part of the app. We have inputs and we have outputs. So if we go here and we take a look at our app here, this is our input for this particular app, and then this is our output. So our output in this case are a series of prompts that help us build upon one another. In our case, we want to go through, we have a much more complex app that we're building here. So we are going to output a lot of different things. So let's go through that process. What does it look like? Because we need to define this. And the reason it's important not to just go in without any type of plan is you get that blank page syndrome where you're just staring, because you're caught up in like the technical aspects of it, and you're trying to figure that. You want all that to go away. You want to be able to look at your outline and like, okay, here's what we're outputting. So let's just get at least a loose kind of idea of what we're doing here. And then we're going to take this whole thing. This right here to me looks very overwhelming, this big list of everything here. We're going to take this and make it much more manageable. And I'll show you how you can kind of do your MVP version, and we can build upon that. All right, so what we're going to output, let's just think about a book. I would say, let's just start with like maybe a premise, title, subtitle. And then we have like our we could do like a mind map or an outline. I'll just do an outline. Um, and then if we just kind of go through that, just kind of the basic components of a book, we have our, just, we actually write whatever's in the outline. So we do all the chapters. So intro, introduction, maybe, and then all the chapters. So chapter 1, chapter 2, all the way through 10, 1 through 10. And then I can spell it correctly here, chapters. And then we, do our, some type of conclusion or whatever we might want to do to wrap everything up. So I'll just put conclusion here. And maybe, yeah, some type of, so from there, that's kind of the components of our book. You might want to do like an image to represent it or images to illustrate, just depending on what you're trying to do. Then we have some other things that may be before or after the book, like just some research on the topic. Maybe we output some research. There's some creative ways we can do that. There's also research on our target audience. So we may want to define our target audience and have the AI help us with that part of it and use it for actually building the book. Let's see, like a homework section. We have our checklist. Those are all outputs. So we can go back from our list above and we could just pull out those things. Okay, so that quotes would be one that you would want to like actually specifically output. And we can go back up here and see images, research, questions that make you think. All of these are kind of output related things. Pain points. This could be defined by the user, or we could have the AI kind of assist with that as well. Relatable stories would be something we would want to add in there. All right, so these are kind of the big chunks. So I think this is a good start right here. So let's just start out with the MVP inputs. Like what is at least the least reasonable amount of input that we need from the user in order to build? Technically, the answer is probably nothing. You could have AI like brainstorm everything, but it would be completely random. So I would say at least have some type of input on the topic or the title of the book, or the problem you're trying to solve. Like maybe like a topic and a category or something like that. So let's just go with that. And we'll build from that. So we'll just start with like a topic topic, basically what the book is about or what like the big problem or the big promise it solves. So maybe we could do like that, like, and we'll figure out how to word it later. Big promise, or the problem it solves. And we could do other things as well. We could do like maybe a category and then maybe like just an other area. And this could be just like notes or brain dump kind of area where you can just put in anything that like you just want specifically to be in the book or be part of that process when coming up with the book. All right, is everybody following me so far? Any questions? I'm not going to stop a whole lot, but I do want to do like a pulse check every once in a while and just make sure everybody just kind of on the same page. We all good? Just let me know in the chat if you want me to stop or if there's anything that's not making sense. All right, and then you would go in here and for the other input ideas, I would go through here and go ahead and write these out as well. And you can grab a lot of this from here. So in this case, we're going to do, these could be separate inputs. We have them as one right now, like problem to solve. Pain point could be one as well. Target audience, I would actually probably put that as an input. So target audience would be an input. You could do like a writing style as an input if you wanted to. How you want to maybe you like a certain author style or something. And then you could have a number of just like little minute preference style things. Do you want like stories to open up each chapter? Do you want it to be, lots of illustrations, frameworks, checklists? All those could technically just be preferences. And you could let the user decide, or you can just bake them in there. They don't, the user doesn't have a choice. It just kind of comes with that. But I would start with less options and then add more as you go, because it's very doable to tweak a lot of this stuff. Cool. All right. I think this is a good starting point. Maybe we start with, I like adding the target audience in there as well. It's not a hard one to do, so we might as well do that. And I think this is a good enough start for us to go and actually start building this app. So we have our guide here. We've brainstormed all of this. We have our outputs and our inputs just to get us going. And probably the next thing we want to do is like with their outputs, maybe define a little bit more like the order that they're going to come in. Is the premise the first thing we do? I like this order. I think it's okay. Some of this is going to this would not be a part of the MVP. I would say, let's just bold what we think the MVP would be. And I would say it's probably this piece here. We could write something with this. All of this is just going to make it a ton, a lot better. Just make it more richer and things like that. Okay. All right, so let's go. We'll go back to Dropify.ai, and we are actually going to start building our app here. And I'm going to go over to apps section, Dropify.ai. And if you've never seen Dropify.ai before, it's basically a platform that lets you use either pre-built apps from other people, or you can build your own custom app. If you've never been here before, there's lots of different apps. This is still, as of this recording, technically in beta, which means there's just rapid feature development, and it's not to what I would call like its mature state where all the core has been added. But there you can do, even at its what it's at now, you can do some really crazy stuff like build websites, build entire books like we're about to do, and then all sorts of stuff. And it interacts with multiple different AI models, from text to image to audio, and then hopefully video soon. In some ways, video is a little more challenging to do, and it's still pretty early on, even in like all the leading leading models that are out there. All right, so yeah, you can go around and play with that and search for your different things. There's lots of improvements to do with like the UI and searchability, but you can still search and filter and just scan through. Eventually we'll have like a favorite section and a bunch of cool things you can do here. For now, we're just going to add a new app. There's a button to the top right as of this particular UI, and you'll see your app building screen. You'll have a place to add your title, your slug. Publish status doesn't really mean anything right now. It will come to play in the future, so just leave it private for now. It's fine. It doesn't matter. You can give it a category, a featured image. You can 1600 by 300. I'm not going to focus a ton on this, but you can upload your own image there. I've got some pre-built ones I'll probably just use for now, and there's some separate training on how to even create, use Midjourney or some other type of AI to build this, or even Canva or something like that. Give it a description. An example is if you want to show an example output of what's produced from your app, you can put that there. So if you do share it with other people, which eventually will have those options, they can see like, here's what it actually produces. And then we have a place for your inputs and for your prompts. So inputs is just going to be what you input, what you select. So just like we saw in the other app, I had to, write in what I wanted it to produce. And that is what this is right here. And then prompt. So we'll go through all of these different pieces as we build it, just so we can have get some traction going here. So let's go ahead and start out, give it a title. And the title, I will just do, I'll just call it Create a Self-Help Book. And I'll just call it Self-Help Book for my slug. This is not really being used yet, but it will eventually. This is where basically it gets added to the URL. The slug is basically just everything that comes after, like Dropify.ai. Okay, publish status doesn't matter. In this case, I'm going to do book as my category. I'll do maybe copywriting as a category, and you can add multiple categories here. Here for the drag your image, I think I have some images I can do here. So I will find my image real quick and I will drag that on here. I'm doing this on a different screen, but you should be able to see it here shortly. I'm just going to pick one random, see if I can drag your image here. Did it let me drag it? Or is that a lie? I think it's a lie. I don't think I can't drag my image there. Let's try this here. I'm just going to pick something random. All right, so we have our image, and we will, I'll just do a quick little description here, and we'll get into building this thing. Okay. All right, so for our inputs, let's start with this. We'll go back to our guide. For our inputs, we decided we were going to use topic, category, notes, and target audience. So that's what I'll do. So for our topic, I'll just hit, for the input, I'll hit add new input, and we'll just put topic. We may change the title. It doesn't matter at this point. You can just put whatever. And I'm just going to keep adding the inputs. I think we had 4 different inputs. I'll go ahead and click this. We'll add all these. Our next one is category. So we'll do category here. Category. We'll do, I'll just put notes. I'll just put anything. Let's see. This doesn't really matter. So a lot of times I don't get caught up in all this stuff because you can change it. Anything extra you want included in the book. Just kind of be descriptive. Okay. And then we could rename it later. Then target audience. Target audience. All right. So now we have our 4 inputs here. Right now they're all just these text holder, or just like a single line text. So for topic, that works. Category, this to me, it's fine for now because we're just in MVP stage. Eventually, I want to go back and I'll probably add like a drop down area, like options, and make this a drop down. And then I'll go in and add like whatever business or family or something like that. For now, I'll add a couple of them and then I'll use the other label, and then you can hit other over here. And if you put other in this one right here, it'll actually make it where you can type in whatever. So it gives you that flexibility. So right now we'll keep it as that and we'll add to it later on. So this still lets us have some defined, but also lets the user define it as well. And that's good for now. Eventually we may want to just lock it down once we have more categories. Okay. Our next one we have, and you can also define if it's required or not as well. But our next one we have is the notes area. For this needs to be, to me, a bigger text area. So let's go with text area instead of text. And that will give us a much bigger area to write with. Okay. Oh yeah, there's a typo. Thanks for that. Well, it says dimension. And apparently we need to get rid of drop your image here because it's not currently letting you do that. So yeah, thanks for that. All right, so we have our text area there. So let's go to our next one, which is target audience. And this one, we can just leave it open. And then we could put a little note here like who is the primary audience for this book. All right, so we have our 4 inputs. Now, the way this works is anything that gets put in here by the user, so this is the form that they fill out and they hit submit, all of that information gets passed on to the model or to the AI models. And that's what happens in the prompt section. And you get to define what information gets passed on. So you have flexibility. This essentially is stored in a variable, every little piece here. So the topic has its own little storage holder. And same with category, same with this, same with the notes and the target audience. They're all separate. And that means you have the flexibility on when and how to share this with the different AI models. So let's just go take a look at how this works, and then we'll go ahead and start building out our different sections. First thing I want to do is just go see what we need to do first. And in our particular output that we defined, we said we put premise as the first thing. So we can always move this around, but let's just start out with the premise. So I will add a new prompt. And immediately you'll see that there's a box here. You have the prompt name here with a little pencil. I'm going to go ahead and click the pencil, and I'm going to go ahead and rename this premise just to keep us organized. This will rename it the premise. That way, anytime you reference it later, you'll know what you're actually referencing. From here, we have basically a blank box, and we have our models here. The models are all of the different AI models we have connected to Dropified AI. So in this case, we have ChatGPT 3.5 and 4, which are models from OpenAI. My favorite right now is probably GPT-4. It follows instructions the best. So when you're doing these complex apps like this, it really helps to have the instruction following. It doesn't, some things it doesn't really matter. You can mix 3.5 and 4 as you're building these out. But for 4 is just a good kind of default one to go to. Claude 2 is pretty good. To me, it doesn't follow instructions as well. Maybe it'll get better, but right now it doesn't. These DaVinci, Ada, Curie, to me, they're kind of redundant at this point. We have them in there just in case you have a specific need for them. But ChatGPT 3.5, would be probably a better, if you're going to use one of these, would probably be better just to use that. And then, yeah, we have Claude. Dolly. It's pretty bad right now, but we're leaving it in there because they're going to upgrade it at some point. I thought they would have done it like months ago, but they haven't. Stability AI right now for API access, they have those are both image models. So Dolly 2 and Stability are images. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Well, Stability AI is pretty good actually with their XL. So you would choose Stable Diffusion XL 1.0. So we might cover that, but this lets you generate images. And then we have 11 labs to produce audio. So you can connect it to your own 11 labs account and produce audio. We've got the new models in here, the new engines as well. So you can check that out. We have a URL scraper. So if you want to go scrape info from another site or an API, this is something that you can use as well. This is good. How we talked about research. We probably won't do this today unless we have time, but you could use this to go do research. You could probably have some type of input that lets the user input or paste some URLs of blogs that are places on the internet that might have some really good research to help, get some information for the book. You could put that on there and just scrape it and add it to the prompt. And then we have YouTube. Same thing with YouTube. Like have a YouTube video that you want to add to this thing. You could have a place to have a YouTube URL here and get the transcript and use that apart as part of your, your quote research that you're doing, that you want to feed the book. So there's some pretty cool things that we can do right now. That's a little too, just like makes it a little more complex than what we want to do right now. And then, so we're going to stay with more basics. But the last prompt type we have here is called display. Display is, you can use it in multiple different ways. What it does is it's a way to either store, has two functions. It can display the information and do nothing else. It doesn't pass it to an AI model. It just displays whatever's on there. It renders whatever's in this box. So if you just literally just type this, and you could, just run the app, it would just show that. It's not going to run it through an AI model. This is good because you always don't need to run it through an AI model. The other thing, though, it's good for is when you're building apps, especially something like what we're about to build. This is a great storage container. So this almost acts as an input where the user has inputted something, but it acts as like an invisible input. Like the user doesn't enter anything, you enter something as the app creator, and you're able to reference it over and over again without having to like keep copying and pasting. And then when you need to change it, you just change it from one place. So previously I would go through and I would like, write chapter 1, I would have like a paragraph of stuff I would be referencing, like use this style, use all this stuff. And I would have to do it over and over. And then if I changed it, one thing I wanted to make the prompt better, I would have to go through like every chapter and redo it. Now I don't, I just reference it in one place, and it's always there. And it'll just, it's just much, much more easy to manage. All right, so saying that, what we're going to do first is let's just go ahead and lay out all of our prompts and give them names, and then we'll go through and actually start building out the prompts. Yeah, and Walt, just real quick on that, no, I don't know if for Midjourney, Walt asked, is there any word on the Midjourney official API being released? Man, I wish. It's definitely by far the best, but I don't think they're going to do it. I don't know their reasons why. Maybe they will once they have more of a web user interface that they're working on. But yeah, I don't think they're planning on doing it anytime soon. So we're just gonna have to hope that some of these other ones continue to get better and better, which they are. All right, so we have our first prompt is our premise. So we also want to do our title, subtitle, and an outline. So let's do that. We'll do title. And I'll go ahead and just get these prepped. We're going to GPT-4. I'm going to go ahead and do Markdown, then GPT-4 here for our title, Markdown. This is just kind of my preference. And you have parameters. We'll talk about those in a bit. Then we have our subtitle. I'll do the same thing here. If you want to do this along with me, yeah, kind of go for it. I think it'd be good practice. Then we have outline. So I'll do a new one. Outline. And GPT-4 and Markdown. And we have introduction, chapters 1 through 10. All right, so at this point, I think I could, yeah, I can keep going. I'll do introduction. And I'll do chapter 1, and then we'll stop there. And I'll show you why here in a second. I mean, you could keep going, doesn't matter, but just so we can actually start writing some of these prompts. All right, so we do all the chapters, and then we wrap it up with the conclusion, and then, from there we can just make it better. So what we're doing here, and the whole thing about this is you could just, you might think you could just write to your AI, yeah, just have one prompt and it writes out the whole book. And the reason it doesn't work is several reasons. One, I think it's I mean, the AI right now basically acts kind of like our brain does. It can only hold so much in there at one time, and just it can only focus and put its attention on so many things at one time. It'd be like just trying to tell us to sit down and write a book all at once just by, in like 30 seconds by just staring at like a page full of everything, all of our research and all of our inputs. So it needs to do like we are. Just think about how you would do it. You would break it up, you would outline it out, and then you might go and do some research, and you would write out just the introduction. So that's how you would want to interact with this in the same way. And that's why we're breaking these up into different pieces. We're going to focus on each of these pieces. All right. So another tip, let's go ahead and write our premise. So when you're writing your prompt for your premise, a tip for this is to don't try to just write it as a sentence. Chat GPT, you'll get in there, you might just start typing out a sentence, whatever you think. In this, I recommend that you write it very structured, almost, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a second, but in a way that's very repeatable and a way that can handle the variation that you or others are going to type in these areas. So if you try to write it into a sentence and insert it in the middle of a sentence, it just gets clunky because they might not write it grammatically correct, and who knows if it's going to influence the way it's output. So typically what I'll do is I'll write something. Again, these prompts are not going to be like the master prompts. This is MVP, brainstorm, brain dump. And I encourage you to do the same thing. You'll waste your time just like, going through rabbit holes, searching for the best prompt, when really you just need to get the information in there and do like the most basic prompt ever. And then you can come back later after you have the structure and you can make the prompt better. There's no point in like just spending so much time because you'll just get stuck and you'll never have an app that will work. So I'll typically write like what I want it to do. So in this case, or I'll tell it like the context of what we're trying to do. And then anytime I'm giving information for it to consume, like the inputs, anytime I'm giving it inputs, I will write it in a way that it's not part of a sentence. It just labels what the input is. And then it just has, you'll input the variable, or you'll give it the variable there. That way it doesn't matter what the user types. It just, it should work. In this case, I'll just say, we are, or I am writing a self-help book for a specific target audience that solves a problem. And you could change that up. So this is my first attempt here. So you're just telling what you're trying to do because you want to give it a goal. You want to give it some context. Then I'll tell it what I want it to do using the following information. So I'll just say, write me I'll just say, write out a premise for this book using the following information. To me, this is like my go-to. You might figure out a different way or a way that works for you, but just this is a very like using the following information is like a phrase I'll use all the time in doing this. And then you essentially just write out, here are the inputs. You write out the labels for the input. So like topic, I might put like topic of the book or something like that. And then at this point, you want to give it your input, the variable. To do that, you just hit the @ symbol. So for me, Shift 2 gives me the @ symbol, brings up this drop down menu, and I'll just click it, topic. I'll go to the next one. The next thing is category. So category, you can put category of the book or whatever you want to do and play with it. In this case, I'll hit @ symbol again, category. Next thing we have is anything, I'll just put like other things to include uh, in the book. Um, and then I'll just hit @ symbol. There we go. And the next one is target audience. Same thing. @ symbol, target audience. All right. And other than that, you want to give it like any further instructions. So I might just put like format this in Markdown. I usually just use that as kind of a something that I do in every prompt. So we think about it. So what do we have here? It knows what we're doing. It knows what we're trying to do. And it knows the inputs and it knows like the format that we want to have. Anything else you add is just going to be, you might make it richer, maybe think in a different way, whatever, think like a certain person, you can do things like that. In this case, it just be straight up with it. And I think this is going to get us there. So at this point, I think we can go ahead and just save it. And if we wanted just to test it out, we could, and just stop it whenever it's done after the first thing, just to make sure it's going to do what we want. So we'll put a topic in here. Anybody, if you want to suggest a topic, throw it in there. In this case, I will just, I'll do this for let's do for parents of young children. And we're going to do how to help your child be grateful for the things in their life. This could be things people in their life. Yeah, I have a young child, and this is something. I have a 4-year-old. We're like, man, wish he was just grateful. All right. So anything extra you want to include in the book, we could put some notes there if we wanted to. In this case, I'm gonna leave it blank and just see what it does. This is going to be parenting, maybe that's the category, parenting. And we'll go ahead and hit submit and just see if it's going to give us a premise. You could even do something like a label if you wanted to just give it a label. Eventually, I'd like to have a separate thing where you don't even have to say give it a label. It just maybe has a separate place to put a label. But in this case, we can say label this section premise. All right. And you might even put it in like quotes, premise, or whatever. Okay. So we'll do that and I'll save it. And then we'll go ahead and hit submit and just see if it gives us, oh, I got to fill in. So this one right here, you see how it said it's required. So I just need to go up and make sure that that's not a required field. So let's go up to our notes. And we'll uncheck the required part of it. All the other stuff probably needs to be required, but that one doesn't, because not everybody's going to have something they want to put there. So now I'll run it again. All right, so here's our premise, and it's given the little hashtags, and it'll format it. But for so the book, How to Help Your Child Be Grateful for Things, People, in Their Lives, falls under the parenting category. It offers a comprehensive guide designed specifically for parents of young children. The book aims to, okay, yeah, I got to stop because it's just going off on these other ones and doing some random stuff. Here, we'll zoom in a little bit too here. So we're just paying attention to this first one. The book aims to equip parents with tools and strategies for nurturing gratitude in their children, providing them a strong grounding in life. This would make their children appreciate what they have, express thankfulness regularly, and grow up with an attitude of gratitude. This isn't just about saying thank you, but grounding them in genuine gratitude towards life's gifts and the people who contribute to their enrichment. This book clarifies the importance of these skills, offers practical advice on how to implement them, and enumerates the potential long-term benefits your child can reap from cultivating a grateful perspective in early life. Cool. So I think that's a good premise. Now depending on how you want to build the app or how we do it later, maybe we tweak, maybe we give it like defined sections of the premise. I would have to study premises a bit more, but I think this is good. Like this gives us a good start. So we're going to use this to build off the other stuff. All right, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom out again. And yeah, no. Well, it says, can you rewrite this book for a 4-year-old to read it, please? That's right. That's what we really need. So, all right, so now we have our premise. So the cool thing that we can do here is we can, my dog is behind me snoring. So now we're going to go to the title. So if we go to the next section here, we've got our premise. Now we need a title for the book. So let's go ahead and we can pretty much do the same thing. Like we'll take this information and I'm just gonna, and you can do this in multiple ways. This is just kind of how I'm doing it here. Okay, so we're going to write a title. So let's give it some information. So I'm writing a self-help book for a specific target audience that solves a problem. Write out a premise for this book. So instead of premise, we can just put title, write out a title for this book using the following information: topic of book, category, other things to include in the book, target audience. All right, so we have that. And then now we can also put book premise, because now we have our book premise. So I'll hit @ put in the premise, and I will go down and save it. And let's see. We could do the whole formatted in Markdown, and then we can label it title. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Formatted in Markdown and label this as book title. We'll save it and we'll run it again. All right, yeah, and if you, for whatever reason, if you have to leave, I'll have this saved. I'll post it probably in the Help Center under the workshops. And if you're in the Discord group as a Dropified AI member, then I'll probably have it in, just at least announce it there, but it'll probably live under this Help Center. There's a section, I think, that says workshops right here. So you can just click in and it'll be under this section with some of the other past workshops. All right, so we have our premise. Let me stop this because it's going off on the deep end on some of this other stuff. Okay, we have our premise and our book title. So crafting gratitude, a practical guide for parents to instill appreciation in young children. All right, so you can see this is how we just start building off of each other. All right, so let's go to the next thing. And you can basically repeat this over and over. So now this comes to the point of like, what things are going to be included over and over again. It may not matter at this point, but you could really put all of your inputs in a single like display variable instead of having to like copy and paste this over and over again. You would just be copying and pasting one little variable. In this case, I'm just going to leave it for now, and then I can go back and clean it up later if I want to. All right, let's go to the next thing, which is going to be the subtitle. I'm literally just copy this whole piece here. I'm going to dump it in, and I'm going to call this book subtitle. And then we're going to feed in, also we're going to give it the book title here and feed in the title. And instead of a title here, we're going to write a subtitle for this book. Okay, cool. And then is everybody that's live, does this making sense on how you start? You're just building on one another. You're always feeding it in. This is not ChatGPT, so it doesn't remember. You're using an API. So you always have to feed in the information like it's a brand new from scratch conversation. But with ChatGPT, it has it built in, like that it's remembering some of the stuff you've talked about. With this, every prompt is from scratch. So you have to give it the context over and over again, which is essentially what ChatGPT on the web is doing. They just do it behind the scenes. So if you have any questions on that, if you're live, just put them in the chat. So I want to make sure everybody's kind of following along here. All right, so now we have our subtitle. Let's just keep going because we know it's probably going to work because it's basically the same format. We're just outputting the subtitle. And again, this is MVP. We can go back in and kind of, make some of this stuff even better and tweak things. All right, let's keep going with the outline here. So I'm going to copy and paste all of this again here. And we're going to start cleaning some of this stuff up. Outline, write out an outline for this book using the following information. And then we could even put like number of chapters. 10 chapters with a preface and conclusion or something like that. So write out an outline for this book using the following information: topic, category, other things to include, target. We have the book premise, book title. We also have the book subtitle here. Number of chapters, 10. Format and markdown, label it outline. So this is going to give us an outline of the book. I'll go ahead and save it. And let's go ahead and just output this and just see what we get here. So I'm going to show you two more pieces of this. And then a lot of it's just like repeat, because once you do one chapter, you're just going to repeat that. And there's some things you have to do with the chapters, and I'll kind of show you those tricks. And then we'll see where that gets us. And then if there's how much time we have, we can do some other a little more advanced, talk about some more advanced things and see where we get there. All right, so it's written the title, the subtitle. We've got our outline here. And so we're up to chapter 10 and conclusion, preface. Okay, cool. So now we have our outline. Let's go ahead and stop it because it's going to start just going with blank prompts. All right, so we called this one, I think, the preface instead of the introduction. So I'll change that. And outline. Okay, so now we'll do the preface. So now we're going to start actually writing the chapters of the book. So this is where it changes just a little bit. There's not a ton that changes, but there are some key things to know. As you start writing, we've basically just been dumping everything in. Like we started with, just the premise. We made the premise, we used that, and we dumped it into the next prompt to write the title. We dumped the title along with the premise into the next prompt to write the subtitle. And then we keep like adding more stuff. Eventually, your context window runs out, which is this like tokens, the max number of tokens. It runs out of space and you can't fit it. So you can't, that's important because it can handle quite a bit. But when it gets to when you're writing your chapters, I've found, especially with doing like that children's story app, I found that you really only need like the basic stuff here, plus maybe the preceding chapter. And that gives so if you have the outline and you have the preceding chapter, then you should have enough room to write the current chapter and enough information to know like how it transitions and how it fits into the big scheme of things. So to me, that was kind of the trick to getting it to work. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to copy all of this for now. And just paste it in to this, and we're going to modify it. All right, so I'm writing, you give it some context. So now we want to write out the preface for this book using the following information. Then we have topic, category, anything extra, target, premise, title, subtitle, and then we'll put it in the outline. I'll just put in the chapter outline and outline. Number of chapters 10. Probably don't need this anymore because we have the outline. Formatted in Markdown, label this section preface. So I'm going to do this one, and then I'm going to do chapter 1. And then from there, it's basically just a copy and paste. And then we'll talk about some of the little things you might want to pay attention to and think about to get it to flow correctly and add, because we're doing bare bones MVP at this point. It's like, just tell it what to do and it's going to write it. We haven't put like considered style or adding stories or like transitioning out and all of that stuff. But that's okay. So preface, and I'll go ahead and do the same thing for chapter 1. So let's go ahead and do that as well. Chapter 1. And okay, I'm writing a self-help book, write out chapter 1. Chapter 1 for this book using the following information. Topic of the book, category, other things to include, chapter outline, and then we can also include the preface. I'll just put previous. So this is kind of the format I use, is like previous chapter, and I'll just put preface here. Format it, Markdown, and then we want to update it to chapter 1. All right, so let's just test this out. This gets us all the way to chapter 1. And let's see if it actually works. So submit. We'll follow along with it. Right now, we're just wanting to know, does it doesn't have to be the most beautiful prose or like the most relatable, whatever. Does it follow and actually output what we want it to output? Does it follow instructions? And then everything else is just you going in and, making the prompt a little bit better, adding some little nuances there. We have our premise, we have our title, we have our subtitle. So everything is good so far. We are writing our outline, which is looking good. It's formatting it in Markdown. There are chapters here. We have our preface, introduction about the importance of gratitude, brief overview of the contents of the book. Chapter 1, understanding gratitude, definition of gratitude, science and psychology of gratitude, benefits of gratitude, and so on and so on. Chapter 2 is about gratitude in early childhood development. Chapter 3 is about identifying gratitude opportunities, leading by example, age-appropriate gratitude activities, reinforcing gratitude in everyday routines, cultivating a grateful home environment, real-life anecdotes, overcoming challenges and fostering gratitude. All right, so we have our conclusion and all of our chapters. It looks like it did them all, gave us 10 with the conclusion and preface. Now it's actually writing the preface. As parents, we always strive to ensure the happiness and well-being of our children. It is from the profound love and commitment that the need for this book arises. Children today are growing up in an era of profound plenty. With this comes the risk of taking things for granted. However, gratitude, the appreciation of what is valuable and meaningful to oneself, is a fundamental human emotion that stands at the back end of this apprehensive road. Growing gratitude is a comprehensive guide. This book is divided into 10 structured chapters. Subsequent chapters handle. So just kind of giving the overview. Looks like it's doing a pretty good job as well. All right, and that gives us a welcome to it. And now chapter 1, understanding gratitude. Gratitude is more than just saying thank you. It is a deeper recognition of the good things we have in our lives. So if we follow our chapter outline up here, definition, science and psychology, benefits of gratitude. Let's delve into more of the technical aspect. We have the science and psychology of it. It looks like it's doing good so far. Then benefits. Okay. Yeah. So it's following along. So it looks like we're good on this. So I'll let it complete here. Then we have like it even numbers the benefits. So pretty cool. All right. So now this process, you would literally just take this entire thing and you could copy it and paste it over and over again. Just like we don't have a duplicate functionality, which I want to add one. Just duplicate it multiple times. But you would just add. So since we don't have that, you would just add a new prompt and just copy and paste it. All of the variables should paste for you. So it's just like you've seen before. And you would just go in and change like chapter 2. So let's do that. We've done it once, but let's do it again here. We'll create a new prompt. We're going to name this chapter 2. And then after this one, we'll go in and we'll talk about some of the other things that we can do. Markdown, I'm going to just paste it in here. And then we're just going to update the same prompt. And then we're going to label it chapter 2. The only thing we're going to change is this previous chapter. Instead of it being the preface, we're going to make this chapter 1. And that's it. And you literally just do that over and over and over again. And that gets you your whole book, all the text, which is pretty awesome. It's like you have it. And now, so once we have the plumbing for our book, we do that. Let's just pretend, just for the sake of time, we'll do that over and over and over again. Now we can go back in and really clean it up. So so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to make this a little easier to manage. So let's talk about the display functionality. So once I get to this point right here, it's just copying and pasting over and over again. Anything that's just going to be the same, I'm just going to copy over and over again. So it looks like when we start writing the book, it's going to be from topic of the book all the way to chapter outline. It's going to be the same exact things. I'm just going to, for right now, I'm just going to copy all of that. Actually, here, all the way to format this in Markdown. That's going to be part of it too. I'm just going to copy it. Eventually, we'll get rid of it. For now, I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to add a new prompt to the bottom. And I'm just going to say, I'm just going to paste it in there. I'm going to change the model to display because we're just going to hold it. I'll just leave it in plain text because that's all we need. And I'm going to change this to chapter writing and chapter writing info or something like that. So that's all our info that we're going to use. So now I'm going to come back up to where we're actually writing the chapters. And remember, we said we did from the topic of the book all the way to the chapter outline. I'll just go verify that real quick. Topic all the way to really format this in Markdown. So all of that can be gone. And I can just hit at, and I can go to chapter writing info. The thing is, though, I need to make sure that it's above my other prompts. So I'm just going to go move this up, and we're above chapter 1. We need to go up one more. So now this happens before the preface. That way it can reference it. So now, so we just take this chapter writing info, and instead of having to copy that big long piece every time from here to here, it's just that. So chapter 2 is the same thing. Formatted and marked down to the topic of the book is just that. And now all we are copying and pasting is this. So this makes it so much easier to manage. And it's just easier to like view and look at. And whenever you need to change something about this info, you can just change it in one place. So that's another one tip I would give you. The other tip is, let's start to add a little bit or think about, we'll go over a couple things. One, how can we make our prompt, or like what can we do with our prompt? This is more just to get you to think about it, because I'll have to go through and think about this myself. Is like, what are we trying to write, or what's the output we're trying to get? So we're trying to do a self-help book. Right now, like just on purpose, we have it as a very bare bones default ChatGPT output, and it's, you know, it's pretty good. It gives you the information. But what makes a book? What really makes a book special? And what are the components of that? And that's where you have to do a little extra research. You can leave it as default. It's really whatever you want it to be. But I typically like to go above and beyond to try to make it like really what makes this stand out. And I will go do research, like for book writers, like just read a few blogs on it, like what makes a book stand out. And maybe it's, you know, for a lot of these self-help books, you can read them yourself. So you can see they all have kind of a format. They'll tell like some type of story. So maybe we include that in our in our prompt. Maybe we have maybe we go and we try to make a framework or some type of proprietary framework that we use to teach our solution to the problem. We can include that in our outline. Like before we write our outline, we may want to do some research and have a prompt that says, you know, we're writing a self-help book and here's the topic and here's the premise. Now we have a prompt that says, make a framework. And we do that at the top before we write our outline. This is our premise. So maybe after the premise and after the title, after the subtitle, right before the outline, we have a prompt that says, based on all of the information that we have already, write us or create an easy to relate to or easy to remember framework that uses an acronym to teach, you know, our system of teaching gratitude, or, you know, our system of teaching the solution, because you have to kind of keep it generic and it just uses all the reference. And then we can take that framework and it could be a part of all of this stuff we've done. So we just framework to include in the book. You could literally do it like this. And then you would have your, you know, we don't have a framework now, but that's what you do. And then that becomes a part of your part of your outline, and then it becomes a part of the information it knows. So then it'll have a chapter where it introduces the framework. So that's how you can begin to just know your specific thing that you're trying to output, study up on it, and then use this structured format to create some really unique, advanced, high level, engaging, you know, best in class content. And you can continue just to go back and do that similar thing, just do it over and over again. And that's basically what I did with the children's book. And I'm still improving it and going back, but just create that structure you can follow. And then you can add more inputs that give the user more control, and you just put it in this format. And that's the real power of using a tool like this. And you have an app that you don't have to go through this process and ChatGPT over and over again. You build it once, and then you can get some crazy output. And if you do it yourself, you build your own app, you can keep adding onto your app and making it more what you like. So I love the ability that you can use somebody else's app, but I also love the ability that it's not that difficult to go through this process and build your own if you just really break it down. I say that, I'm assuming a lot there, but you know, this makes it very easy to be able to do something that was super complex. This used to be either manual with ChatGPT, or you have to have like a dev to go and do all this, but now you have like a no code interface to interact with. So I would, yeah, so that's something you can do with some of these other components. For images, we can talk about images. That images aren't that important in a self-help book. You'd probably have one for your book title. Other than that, I wouldn't necessarily use AI to produce images unless you're doing some type of illustrated magazine or something and you want to have some reference stuff. Most self-help books are just text. So just kind of know whatever your medium is and do it for that. Research you definitely could do. So we'll talk about research here in a second. Research on target audience would be kind of cool to add as well. Just a section on really defining your target audience and including that as a part of the book writing process. And maybe, this will get us using this research function here will get us using a different type of prompt. So let's do that. Let me just take a scan here real quick. Bring up target audience quotes. I'll just look at here. Okay. All right. All right. So let's do a couple things. First thing, I'm going to add another input. And I'm going to put, all right, we're going to call this record. Let's see. Brainstorm out loud. Use our recorder to brainstorm ideas out loud that will that you can include in your book. All right, so we're going to build an audio piece here, and we have an input called audio, and it should just do it for you. You just do that. Now we have our audio piece, and we have a record audio, or you can browse and even drag your audio, or I don't know if you can drag it because the other drag didn't work, but you can browse audio. So we have that. So now we need to include that in our prompts. So we would just go and I would probably put it into the other things to include in your book. Just literally put a space and put at and put brainstorm out loud. And now you have that kind of in this other things to include in the book. And if it's there, it shows up. If it's not, it doesn't. And it should be fine. So I'm just going to do this for all of these real quick. And just like that, we have a new feature for our app, just another way for people to interact with it. This is a good, looks like we're good there. Okay. Yeah, this is another way that I like to interact with these is just be able to go in and, just record myself talking out loud about the topic, and you can have some unique perspectives. All right, let's add another thing to do there. So let's do, maybe like a research function. And here we're going to use YouTube to do this. So maybe we like a YouTube video. So these are just other ideas. Use a YouTube video for inspiration. All right. Paste the URL of the YouTube video here. And then we're going to select YouTube URL. And this is specifically for YouTube videos because it goes and it actually grabs the transcription that they have from the URL and it can use it as input in your app. So with this, there's a couple things to think of. One, you have the context window of your AI model. So in the case we've been using GPT-4. So what I'm going to do here, instead of just, because I don't know how long the videos are that people are going to be, using. So I'm going to create a separate function that takes the transcript of the YouTube video and basically just summarizes it into its like main talking points. Because that's all that ChatGPT needs to know anyway. It's just kind of its main point. But I'm going to use Claude to do it. The reason I'm going to use Claude to do it is because it has a 100,000 token window. So it can process a lot of data. So I'm going to go to, and also these are going to be not required. So I'm going to go and add another prompt. and eventually we're going to add it to the top. But for now, I'm just going to do, I'm going to get the YouTube. I'm just going to, this one is just going to be YouTube transcript. Because first we need to actually get the transcript. So this one is YouTube transcript. And we're just going to, and for this model, it's going to go and get the YouTube transcript of whatever URL you pass in here. So in this case, we got to actually pass in the YouTube URL, which is that. So that's all this model is going to do. It's just going to get the transcript and display it, nothing else. In this case, I don't really want to show it to the user, so I'm going to hide it. That's what this eye is for here, this little eyeball. So now the user doesn't see it because you don't really want just a blob of text there. You may want them to just see it, but in my case, I don't. And then I'm going to go add another prompt. And then this prompt, we're going to summarize the YouTube. I'll just put summary of the YouTube video here. And this is going to be, I'm going to use Claude, or even 3.5 would be good. It gives you 16,000 tokens. But we're going to use Claude, and you can use whatever model you want. V2 is probably the more robust, but Claude Instant V1 and V2 they have big token windows as well, so it might be just as good for just summarizing. So I'll try V2 or Instant V2, which is V2 is like the real V2. And then I'm going to go just slide this all the way up. I'll put it at 100,000. I don't know why this little slider doesn't go up there very well. Okay. And then this can I'll put this in Markdown. So we'll do a summary of the video. You don't even necessarily have to do this either. But I'm going to, for this, we're going to write, this is writing a prompt. So we want to put what to summarize. And then I'm going to pass in the transcript here. All right, YouTube transcript gets passed in. And then I'm going to put summarize the following into, again, this is basic prompt because I'm not trying to rack my brain. I just want to get it out, and then I can go back and make all of this better later. This into its main ideas, key concepts and takeaways, whatever. The following, I'll just say, I'll even tell it it's a YouTube transcript to its main ideas, key concepts and takeaways, what to summarize the transcript. We've got max tokens, and then I can put something like format in Markdown. I'll just say as a Markdown list. Okay, I'll save it. And then I'm going to move these prompts up because they don't really belong here, because then we can use the summary to feed into our chapter as well. So first, I'll just bump this one all the way. I'm just going to bump it to the very top because we can use it to inform everything we do. And then this one, I'll make this number 2. Let's see how far I have left to go. Title, okay. Summary. All right, so there we are. So we have our transcript. The transcript gets fed into this model, which summarizes it, and it's going to format it. And I can, if I'm testing it, I would probably show it all these, but when I'm actually running the app, I would probably hide both of these. Yeah, and then I would just pass this in. So I would, next thing I would do is just go other things to include in the book. I would pass it in here as a summary of the YouTube video. So I'll just pass this in here. All right. Okay. And then that's it. So now we have several different ways for people to get more inspiration. So they could do this, they could record, they could do all of them or either or. So speaking of that, I did make this optional, didn't I? Yeah, optional, optional. And then the other one was optional. Okay, cool. All right. So the only other thing I want to chat about, and I'm just going to briefly discuss this, is we could also do the same thing with scraping a site. So just to show you that functionality and how it works, I could go here and I could say um, research. I can call it other website research. Let's just say I also wanted to add a URL to scrape. So I'm gonna go up to my inputs at the top. I'm gonna add a new input. I'm gonna say website or article to use as inspiration. So it's kind of the same concept. I'm just gonna make it text here and just paste in an article you'd like to use as inspiration or to, like to use as inspiration for your book, right? And we're gonna, so now we go through and we're gonna use the scraper. So I'm gonna go to the URL scraper and I'm gonna pass in the URL here, which is gonna be, this one's a little funky because of the URL. The way you do it, it doesn't use the @ symbols because it's this particular field doesn't take it. So you have to use the actual input number. And that's why we left those on there. So this one is going to be input 7. So I'm going to come up here and copy it. I'm going to take it down here and just paste it in. And that's all I've got to do. I don't really need to worry about all this other stuff. I can do text only or full content. In this case, I'm just going to do text only. And I'm going to leave all this other stuff blank. It can be plain text, is fine. And then I will take this up here and move it to the top as well, kind of along with my YouTube. And I can put it above the YouTube. It doesn't really matter because this is just something we're not even going to show to the user. So I would eventually turn this off, but for our example, I'll just leave it on. I'll also leave this on and we can run this app and just see how it works. And we'll input a lot of this stuff and we'll use it. And I'll make sure this is, I think I already made sure it's not required. I need to go now and just add this to the apps. So I'm going to create another one that just summarizes the article as well, because we want to do the same thing. I'm literally just going to copy this. I'm going to bring it down, create a new prompt. I'm going to say summarize the following website page into its main ideas, key concepts, and takeaways. Instead of this, I'm going to do the website or article to summarize. Now I'm going to use Claude again, just because it's bigger. V2 is fine. We'll pump it up in case it needs it. I'm going to do summary of URL. And then I'm going to move it up. And you can see just the power that this gives you. Like, this is pretty cool. All in one app, you can do this. You can see we're just making it more advanced. And we haven't even, gotten into some of this. You build this once. We spent an hour and a half here so far. You can use this over and over and over again. And that's the power of this. So summarize. YouTube. Where are we at? Okay, that's our scraper. And what to summarize. So we're not, no, this isn't what we want to summarize. So I gave you the wrong thing here. We want to summarize the actual scraped content, which is going to be this other website research. That's what we want to include here. What to summarize is other website research. Perfect. Okay. Cool. Tube train. Okay. Yeah. So that gives us everything we need. I'll leave it where we can see it for now. And then let's just run this thing again. I'm going to go research some videos and articles real quick. We'll dump it in. I'll even dump in a quick recording and we'll see. It's not going to write the whole thing because we only got to chapter 2, but it will, we can see how it works. So I'll open this up in a new tab. I'm going to grab a YouTube video. I also do a Google search on teaching your children, let's say a framework for teaching your children, your young children, gratitude. Dude, so I can't see what I'm typing. It's so small. Gratitude. Okay. Teaching children gratitude. Hummingbird nursery. I'm just going to grab whatever. It doesn't matter. This is fine. So I'm going to grab this, use it, and I'll put in the website area. I'm going to go to YouTube. I'm going to do the same search. How to raise grateful children, 10 tips for teaching gratitude. We'll go with that one. See if this has a transcript. Sometimes you want to check if they have transcripts if you're.
In this video, I'm going to cover.
So we're going to see, shows you transcript. Yeah, looks like it does. Cool. And it is 14 minutes. And I'm going to paste this in. And then I'll go with here. Just paste this in, use the same stuff we had. Anything extra, make, create a new framework that parents can use to teach their children gratitude. It's going to be parents of young children. Then I'm going to brainstorm out loud. So I'm going to go ahead and just pretend to brainstorm out loud here. I think after that I can run it. So let's go ahead and do this here. I'm going to allow audio. I want to teach my kids how to be grateful for the things in their lives. There's several times when they have a toy that they just got a few minutes ago and all of a sudden they don't like it and they're complaining about it and they want to already have a different toy, or they have a dress and they want, they're not appreciative of it. So I'd like to help my kids learn to be grateful for what they have, for the blessings in their lives, for the people in their lives, and in practical ways, and to be intentional about doing that. And I'd love to have ideas around that concept. All right, so we have our brainstorm now, and then we hit submit. And let's see if it uses everything. It should output all of this stuff. Let's make sure we don't have any errors, make sure we don't have any just weird things that happen that we need to troubleshoot. Because I did a lot of that new section without actually testing it. So who knows what's going to happen here. But this is probably doing the transcription as well. And it's having to go grab the transcript and it's having to scrape. So let's see what happens here, if anything. Looks like it's just spinning. So hopefully something happens. Some like Jeopardy music or something. All right, here we go. Something's happening. We got a gray line. All right. Something went wrong. Please try again. Okay, it did our scrape here. So maybe so we had this first one was the article. Let's see if I can troubleshoot what happened here. That's chapter 2. Okay, we have our URL scraper. It did grab this, so we know that's right. When it got to here, we wanted it to summarize this. Let me put this at 100,000. It didn't give us like an error like it was. Let me do V2. Let me try V2. I haven't tested this instant V2 yet, so I don't even know if that really works. Let's try that. I'm gonna save this and we'll run it again. Okay, let me try. I'm gonna resume it and then, okay, I'm gonna just try to submit again, see what happens. Okay, we have that. Yeah, I bet that's what it was. That instant V2, I just added it and I haven't tested it, and there may be something like where it's not working or something like that. Cool, so it's summarizing our blog. All right, we've got our YouTube transcript. All right, now it's summarizing the main ideas and key concepts. I can't remember, did I add the, I wonder if I added the website scraping into the actual prompts, which would be summary of the URL, other website research. Did I add this? That would be summary is what I need. Summary of URL is what I would want to add in there. Let's see. It's in summary of the YouTube video. That's in there. I didn't do the other summary, so it's going to be missing this, unfortunately. Summary. So I would need to do summary of URL. So that did not get added in. All right. It'll be there for next time. I did do the brainstorm out loud. Okay. All right. So we got our premise, book title, Grateful Hearts, Gracious Kids, A Parent's Guide to Nurturing Gratitude and Kindness in Young Children. Book subtitle, we got our preface, chapter 1, chapter 2, all of our chapters here. Looks pretty good. Even gave us an appendix. Okay, so this is where this is what makes me mad sometimes. It goes off the rails and starts formatting in HTML. So what's happened here? This is okay, something's happened with the output here. So we've got our chapter, parenting. It's like it's dumped. Yeah, there's some type of issue here. I would have to go back and troubleshoot this prompt to make sure it's right. But it's written our preface here. I'm just not sure what this thing is. I'll have to go check that out. Preface, and then it's writing chapter 1. Oh, this is okay. I know what this is. This is our display. I guess we didn't hide it, or maybe we did. And let's see, our display chapter info, chapter writing info. Oh, that's what it is. This is our chapter writing info. It just displayed it. It's because we didn't turn it off. It just needs to be hidden. That's what it is. All right, I'll save that. So next time somebody runs it, it won't show. So it's just using all of this to write the preface. But it is good to see it. Like if you're creating your app, like here's what's getting dumped into it each time. It writes the preface, it writes chapter 1, and then it's writing chapter 2. So if it can write chapter 1 and chapter 2, you pretty much know it's going to be able to write all the other chapters, and it's not going to error out with some type of, the context is too long. All right, we'll let that finish. And we'll let it finish, and then I will stop. I know, and I'll stop. And if there are any other questions, we'll take those. And if not, I'll go ahead and cut it here. and let you guys kind of finish it out. Like if you've been following along, you can finish it out, or you've been able to see, the process of what it takes to kind of build it out. But you can see, like in an hour and a half, or even a couple hours, you can have like a full blown app that does some pretty crazy stuff. Like we're about to have an app here that, yeah, I've got to go in and do some of the like small things to make the text or the style maybe better. But we've got the bones of something really cool here. So chapter 2, you can see like all of this. Let's see. I wonder if it wrote the framework. Let me see if it actually. I don't see like a framework that it wrote, but I didn't really put that in the prompt. That was just in like the brainstorming section. That's probably what I would do to go improve it. So my next steps for this, I would finish out all the chapters. Then I would go in and I would work on improving the writing prompts. I would maybe say something like open with a relatable story. And then I would go into the outline section and I would probably say something like, where's the outline? Right here. I would say something about, create a framework that can be used. And I would, I might even create a separate prompt for that and then, feed that into this. And then from there, yeah, just kind of go through and just see how it reads and how it flows and make sure it transitions nicely into the next chapter. I would go and do probably some more research on these type of books and just see like what makes them stand out. What are some commonalities? And then just keep improving it. All right, so I'm going to open it up for any questions, or just I'll be following the chat or any questions, and I'll start kind of the transition process of just wrapping this up. So this has this has been this has actually been really fun for me. This is something I've wanting to do. I've done the children's story one, which took me a whole lot longer than this because I had to go through and like figure all of this out from scratch. And like, what's the best way to do it? How much can you get in there? And like how to structure it. I've been through that process now, and I feel like I've got a good grasp of an approach to use for this. And we've added, tons of stuff since then, so I can use some of these other features. The other cool thing about this, what I'll say is, once you get all of your chapters outputted, you could add you can make this an audiobook. Just feed it into audio. Of course, you would want to make sure that your book you would want to run it a few times to make sure your book is consistent, because sometimes, the ChatGPT can just output some random text and you're like, oh man, it was all good except for that one part. But you can feed it into 11 labs. You can, try to make a book cover with it, or you can do that separately or whatever. But there's some other cool things you can do with it as well. If you have any other ideas on how to use other APIs, maybe there's other information you want to bring in there. Maybe there's even like research papers you want to bring. You could connect this thing to a research paper API and actually bring in real legit research on your topic. The only thing that's challenging with that is there's not currently a way to interact with that. So you can't say, I want to use this particular research. You would have to, I guess the best way to do that is like you would actually have a URL of the research and you would just paste it in here. But the other things you can do is like a quotes. You could connect like a quote API in here as well. And you would want, if you want to just, give it a shot at it picking its own quotes. I've done this before. I didn't even use an API. I literally used some type of quote website that had like search query parameters in it. And I would just use it to do a search for a quote and just automatically include. It was kind of, it was okay. I'm sure that process can be improved, but there's a ton of ideas that you can do to make these things even more robust. All right. Well, so with that, I want to thank you all for being here, attending, and for those of you who are watching the recording. Hopefully this has been helpful and just kind of opens your eyes just to the power of not just creating a book, but really any process that's like some type of content generation process, no matter how complex, can typically be broken into smaller pieces. You can connect with APIs. You can do a bunch of different things to create some very, very good, or not even great, and maybe even great drafts that you can go back and edit. So you can do this with blog posts, like break the process down. I think that's the skill set, is like, how do you break that process down and just translate it to these prompt boxes. So thank you so much. If there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, call it a day, and I will continue to work on this app and make it available for anybody who is a Dropified AI member. So appreciate it, and have an awesome rest of your day, whether you're watching this live or the recording.